Hello and welcome to Take 5, the podcast from the 5% Club, where we bring you insight, inspiration and innovation from employers, sector stakeholders and policymakers. So grab yourself a cup of tea or pop on your trainers and headphones, however you like to listen. We're glad that you've chosen to listen with us. I'm Lindsay Conroy, Director for Policy and Strategic Engagement at the 5% Club. We're a charity and an employer movement created by employers for employers. We exist to create positive action to ensure that high quality, inclusive and accessible learn opportunities are available for all. On today's episode, I'm joined by Phil Smith, Chair of Skills England, Jon Hornagold, Apprenticeship Manager from Amey, and Sharon Blyfield, Head of Early Careers at Coca-Cola Europacific Partners. We're going to be in conversation with Sharon and Jon today, learning all about how large employers are using apprenticeships as part of their strategic workforce planning, how they're utilising apprenticeship recruitment to really widen participation, increase diversity and increase social mobility across their organisations, and also learn from some of the really good practices they have that make their programmes so successful. So Phil, Sharon, Jon, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really, really lovely to have you here, Phil. Thanks for coming back. And I'm really excited today to hear you in conversation with two fantastic employers in the UK who are doing great things around apprenticeships in particular. So Sharon, Jon, do you want to maybe start just by telling Phil a little bit about your apprenticeship programmes and what you do? Sharon, should we go to you first?
Yeah, wonderful. Lovely to meet you, Phil. So Coca-Cola Europacific Partners is the largest bottler in the world of soft drinks. Apprenticeships are absolutely critical for us because we know and recognise we've got skill shortages. We've had apprenticeships for quite a few decades, but they were typically engineering. Yeah. And then we realised we needed to become much more structured, much more focused. And what's the skills and capabilities we need for the future? So I'm going to say about 10 years ago, we centralised it. We then linked it to our workforce planning that said, well, what are we trying to do by having apprenticeships? And for us, it was really clear. It gave us a perfectly structured opportunity to bring a lot more young people into the organisation. Our average age is 45.
Right.
I'd like to think I'm 45, but
Yeah.
sadly I'm not. But it meant that by using apprenticeships, it would allow us to actually reduce that age demographic,
Yeah.
but also expand the opportunity. So we have sales apprentices.
Yep.
We never thought we'd have sales apprentices because commercial just kind of happens. But we bring in a small amount of degree apprentices every single year into our organisation. And that's actually helping to really build that future commercial capability for us. And we have our engineering apprenticeships. They're all centralised. We use just one training provider to be able to deliver that for us so that you could work in our East Kilbride site, you could work in our Wakefield site, any of our sites, and you have that same consistent training that's being delivered. And that's been really, really important. So whereas when we first started, it was going out there to say, can you have an apprentice in your location? Now it's very much, okay, so when are you taking the next intake of apprentices? So it's become part and parcel of any workforce planning and strategies that we do. It's absolutely fantastic for us.
How many locations do you have minimum?
So we have 5 manufacturing sites. So one is in Scotland.
East Kilbride, but
East
I
Kilbride,
grew up in
absolutely.
East Kilbride. That was my
Right.
hometown.
For engineering, we bring our East Kilbride apprentices actually down to Liverpool
Right.
to do the training with all of the others. We have our biggest site is Wakefield. It's the largest manufacturing site across Europe. And then we have North London, Sidcup. Then we have offices as well. So head office is Uxbridge, where we have our planning and commercialisation apprentices in there. So they're doing supply chain practitioner. So they're learning all the end-to-end to it. And then we have our Milton Keynes, which is our field engineers who go out on the road and do engineering on the road for us. So, for us, we've got a variety of opportunities that we can leverage the apprenticeship with. And we've really now started to bake that in for us. And as I say, no one says, oh, do we have to have an apprentice anymore? It's when can
Well, we'll definitely talk more about that because that's a great part of it. How many apprentices in total have we got?
So right now, early careers, we have 70 apprentices. We have another 30 that will join us this year as well.
Okay. It's a good number, but you've only got 3,000 or so in the,
Yes,
in the
correct.
people in the country. So
That's correct. So we've only got a small number of employees. So the key for us with all of our programs is that when we hire to retain. And we don't do that, or we'll only take the top 1%. So we'd rather have a smaller number and they spend a bit.
well, I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But John, like, tell us a bit about your apprenticeship.
Yeah, so within Amey, it's a lot of different sectors, but around infrastructure asset management, decarbonisation, with 3 business units, a consultancy business unit, transport infrastructure, and complex facilities. So the same reasons that Sharon said about strategic workforce to planning, bringing young people into the organisation, but on a wider scale across a lot more standards. So highways, railway, data, facilities management, engineering, and I'm gonna miss some out because there is so many, but the breadth is absolutely huge. And the apprenticeships are in every single account that Amey has across the UK. So it's a key asset to the building the business, developing the business, bringing the new talent in, ensuring that they have a quality training experience, but also retaining them as well. And the retention rate in Amey for our apprentices is very, very high. And
Many you learn total on that one?
we've got just over 500 apprentices. 288 were recruited, and 77% of those are under 25. So we're in a very good place with that younger age group, bringing them in on apprenticeships, but also there's the wider early careers aspect with
I mean, you mentioned that every one of your clients has got an apprentice in them as part of a project team or whatever. What's the sort of feedback from, do people like the apprentices? Do they get that energy that we often hear about apprentices not bringing, you know?
Well, I've been with Amey for 4 years now, and like Sharon said, it's not about, oh, do we have to have an apprentice? It's like, when are you going to be asking for the requirements again? And we're now about to go out within the business in transport infrastructure for the requirements for next year. So the sort of business is normal that they know that the requirements come, and then they're actually asking us, when can we start telling you what we need? So yeah, absolutely, they're integral to everything, and it's really positive that we're being asked when to go do it, as opposed to us telling them you need to do this.
It's brilliant. I mean, because part of the work that we're doing with Skills England and the 5% Club is really championing this whole idea of apprenticeships and how incredible they are, not only as individuals, but as an asset within a company. And you obviously have, you know, drunk the Kool-Aid, if you will, as the Americans would say, but you know, you're involved in it, you see the benefit of it. And I know when I ran a big organization, we had loads of apprentices, and it was incredible, you know. But how do we get that? What do you think is, there's still a lot of people who don't see apprentices at all as something you should do, particularly smaller companies, but big companies too. And obviously individuals, we in other environments, we've been talking to apprentices themselves. And, you know, they're great when they've done it. They go, why doesn't everybody do apprenticeship? But it's somehow or other, we're missing that. You know, it's getting better, I think. But any sort of observations on that? But what are the things that companies should really know about apprenticeships and what's so great about them? Maybe, Sharon, you could give us a sense of that.
Yeah, I think one of the first challenges is always the fact that people see it as hard work.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to train this individual. And then once they've got the individual with them and they're asking all of those really good, curious questions, they suddenly think, oh, hold on a second. Actually, this isn't so bad. This isn't so bad. And that's why it then becomes pushing on an open door, because they'll go, well, actually, that person's delivering significantly more than somebody who's been with me for the last 20 years. So therefore, I want more of that individual than the ones that I've got long established within the organisation. But I think there's a whole piece around parents as well within a lot of this. Yeah. So if you've followed a traditional pathway, you've left formal education, you've gone to university, if you're fortunate enough to do that, and then maybe you've gone into medicine, law, finance, they're always seen as those prestigious roles. And a lot of people forget that within organisations, those roles exist. And we use a lot of our apprentices to showcase those opportunities. There's no point in me going out there and trying to talk about. They need that connection.
Yeah.
So we use them as our ambassadors to talk to not just the schools, but also go to the communities where the parents are and to share those success stories.
Yeah.
But also I find lots of people are quite competitive, and we talk about awards and we put our apprentices up for awards, and all of a sudden people go, oh, my son, my daughter won an award last night. And others go, well, how? Why?
Yeah.
And that's what I think needs to create more positivity around apprenticeships. Yeah, you're talking to the converted. I love apprenticeships, but it's amazing how many organisations think it will be too much work for them. Yet, we need to be able to create the opportunities and have our successors, the people who are going to replace us, coming in through those routes. And there are so many different apprenticeships that you can do. So you don't always have to do the ones that take you to university, just even those entry-level ones set you up.
I mean, you do hear that. You hear that in the narrative of, it's hard work, but you also hear that, it's a great opportunity to get young people into the company, maybe before other people grab them. You hear the energy, you hear the stories about retention. I mean, that's a great example as well. I know in my environment, that was the case, even comparing grads to apprentices, they were significantly more loyal in the broadest sense, So, there's some real magic. Jon, any observations about how you would, what's the sort of challenges that we see and maybe how we can address them up front and help others to be as good as you are?
I think the key challenge is for younger people to hear the opportunities. So we spend a lot of time within Amey, our social value teams go out and tell people about the opportunities and maybe more of an understanding about Amey and what it does.
Where did you do that in schools?
We've got a number of programs that we go into primary schools with an organisation called STEMazing. That is a new project within Amey. We were already going into secondary schools, a project called We Solve It, and they're predominantly going into girls' schools to educate them and develop their knowledge about STEM and working with Amey. And because a lot of people think to work in civil engineering, you have to be a civil engineer, but there are so many support functions around it to make it happen. So they go into those schools. We've got a care leaver program in Amey that's in different areas of the country. Will host people that have been in the care system for 4 days, show them about Amey, and ring fence opportunities for them, apprenticeships for them. We've now this week, there's an assessment centre going on for in an open prison. So somebody that's on release on temporary licence. We've got a highways apprenticeship role ring fence for them. So much work going out to explain about what Amey does and the opportunities, and also working with external organisations as well, the 5% Club, the Association of Apprentices, the Apprentice Ambassador Network as well, working as a collective to educate audiences, the positivity and the opportunities for apprentices within the...
I mean, Sharon mentioned briefly in passing, but in one of it was the parents. Is that an area that have you had any chance to talk to? Because often they're very influential, aren't they?
They are, and I've been fortunate enough to go to some of the recruitment fairs that we go in, and the ones that I've been to, I've seen more and more parents coming along to them, which I've got children when they're younger. They might have gone to a recruitment fair and thought it was a day out, but no, the parents are coming along and they are really and they're interested. They want to educate themselves about the opportunities for those children or the people that they're looking after. But with that messaging of going in schools, and whether it's a primary school and, 5-year-old, 6-year-old John, we had a person from Amey come in today. The parents will be inquisitive and start looking into it and educate themselves. So there's a knock-on effect of those programs that we do.
It's interesting. So it's interesting the difference, isn't it? I mean, Amey, in terms of scale, number of employees in the UK, number of apprenticeships is significantly larger than Coca-Cola Europacific Partners. But that brand piece obviously requires a lot of work from your perspective, and that will be the case for so many employers in terms of having to build that employer brand piece. I'm wondering, from the perspective of other employers that might be listening, how do you utilise your programmes to create those progression pathways and showcase those progression pathways to people? Because I know as a parent, if one of my children were thinking about an apprenticeship, obviously I'm going to tell them they should do it. But I'd want them to understand, where can that apprenticeship take them? What might their pathway look like? What do you guys do around that?
So that's one of the things I'm really proud of with our apprenticeship program. So we have had apprentices who joined on level 3 business admin, who now are project managers for what's called our commercialization area. Can we actually make these products in our manufacturing sites around the UK? They are responsible for making those decisions.
Just a stepping stone into
Absolutely. And yet when they joined in business admin, you just didn't know where they could go, what they could do, how they could succeed. But our engineers are now ones who are running the engineering elements of our manufacturing environment. So we've got great, I call them case studies, because that's exactly what they are, about the power of an apprenticeship. And what's really interesting, they seem to also fast track quicker than someone who's come in as just a direct hire into the organisation. I say just as a direct hire, but as a hire into the organisation. They seem to now have that prestige. You've come through as an apprentice, you've really done all of that groundwork, and then you've had a trajectory that's taken you really far in the organisation.
It's interesting. I mean, John mentioned targeting girls and others, but I know you've done a lot in trying to get to groups who maybe wouldn't have had access. I'm sure Amey have as well. It'd be interesting to hear your experience, Sharon.
So what's really interesting, so although we're a big brand, that has its disadvantages.
Right.
Because a lot will go, well, that's a big brand, I'll never see myself in that organisation. So we've worked with external partners because we need to get the people who operate in that space to help us. And so there's an organisation called SALT that works with the Black community, Uptree that work with underrepresented groups who are from a lower socioeconomic backgrounds, but also girls into engineering as well. And they have allowed us to connect with communities and groups that we wouldn't normally have had that opportunity to connect with, or they would think they've discounted themselves before they've even put an application into us. And that's allowed us to have much stronger representation in our programs coming through. From a social mobility perspective, I often think about myself, and that's whole social mobility and being able to create the opportunities and provide a network for those who don't have those networks.
Yeah.
And that's been really important for us. And we see that as people come through the assessment centres, as they join our programs, we're getting much, much better representation. And we're a brand that operates in every community. So we should be representing every community as well.
It's interesting about it because, we've heard from friends themselves about the networks, because obviously if you join a very small company, you're maybe the only apprentice. Join a bigger company, there's maybe a group of apprentices. But that sort of idea that there are networks like, AOA or AAN, who are actually out there and are super helpful for young apprentices. Is that something you actively go? Do you go out and tell people about those sort of networks? Or John, do you do it?
We do tell them about the external networks, but within Amey as well, there's an early careers program and an early careers community that, yes, we have a lot of apprentices, we have a lot of sites, but there might be one apprentice in this site and they weren't engaging. But now there's been, over the last 18 months, a big development to bring them all together multiple times throughout the year, whether it's National Apprenticeship Week, when we had 25 apprentices in our AI and Innovation Centre.
In Birmingham.
Yeah, in Birmingham, and other opportunities just to build a community so they have other people to speak to that joined at the same time and probably have similar questions to them. So that has really worked, but actually that has evolved a little bit more now. So that early careers community is not just our graduates, apprentices, placement students, that is everybody in Amey that is under 25. So we can build that community. And just because you haven't come in on a apprenticeship pathway, you will be involved and afforded the same opportunities to retain those people, support those people, and give them a positive experience.
It's super powerful. I mean, when I used to run Cisco, and we had a big early career network, and we connected it to other companies. These were amazing people. I would give them roles as the CEO. I'd say, can you just organize the next all hands? Unbelievable energy, unbelievable. I mean, they're just amazing groups, aren't they?
They absolutely are. And I guess for us, it starts with the moment we make the offer. So the first thing we did, and actually I've done it in the last few days, was an online call, virtual, with all of the new engineers that are going to come and join our organisation. We invite them to, each of our sites have their barbecues, so they get to go to the barbecue along with their parents ahead of joining the organisation. And then we have a week-long induction. It's fun. Everyone says it's the fun time in the You can make all the faux pas within reason that you want during that week, because no one's watching you and you're not going to break any of our equipment or anything. And so they build that strong community for the different apprenticeship pathways that they're going through. And then we have an annual celebration, so an annual graduation, and then the awards, our own internal awards, where if you're graduating, your parents get to come along, your siblings, and then they get to attend the gala dinner as well. And everybody wants to go to that, and everyone wants to win the awards. And it is just the pride that they have, the people who have supported those journeys take within that. And that's what helps us with retention, because everyone says it's a great place to be and a great place to work.
What do you do about your... Oh, sorry, John.
I was going to say, I think those keep warm activities this week are so important because of the employment market at the moment. We're not naive. The apprentices are applying for multiple roles, and where they're successful, they've gone through a process, assessment centres, they've shown they've been offered the role. Amey wants that person, so there's a little bit of work there to make sure that right from the very early stages, they feel that they're being invested in as a person within that company, and it's really vital those keep warm activities.
What do you have to do with your management staff to bring on apprentices? Do they need to be specifically... I mean, obviously got good at it by the sounds of things, but is that something you have to genuinely think about and say, how do you make sure you deal with an apprentice or a young person?
Absolutely. It is critical, and it's probably one of the areas that we were quite weak at in the beginning, but we've made sure that managers who are receiving apprentices, because not every year it's not the same managers, they get to go to the training provider. That's really important, so they can understand the environment that the apprentices are going to be in. We help them to understand the whole off-the-job piece, because that's really key, because at the end of the day, they're thinking about their end results and targets. And we keep them absolutely involved, and managers understand who else is managing an apprentice. So they form their own network, and they can then talk about it as well. But involving managers and senior managers, really, really critical, so that we can ensure that all the way through, everyone understands the part they play.
It's interesting that, you guys clearly have put so many things in place to be successful. I'm keen to hear about some of the returns you see from that. But before we go there, I'd love to understand how you knew what to do. Like, those things don't happen by accident. You've put a lot of work in. You talked about apprentice networks. What about employer networks, other people you learn from? That, how have you learned what works, and how have you become or got to this point where you are so successful?
For me, it's using the networks. I've met Sharon many times before, and just discussing things and having those opportunities to try and understand, and not it being a trade secret what's working for you, what's working for us. We're all doing a very similar thing, maybe just in different sectors. So I was on a panel yesterday just saying, please use your networks, use your training provider networks, use the external organizations, 5% Club, AOA. there is a vast amount of knowledge and experience and understanding. Don't try and work it out yourself. Reach out. And I would say for me personally, the last 2 years, people have been a lot more open to have discussions, said, oh, this is what we're doing and we'll keep it. So we reach out to each other and actually understand them. But maybe what works for Sharon isn't always going to work for us, but it's a consideration that we say, we need to just gently adjust this. Have we thought about this? So yeah, just reach out to each other.
And I think that's the beauty about the early career space. Whereas for most things, your competitors in the early career space, we're actually collaborators. I remember when the DAS account first came in, which is the digital account, for us to do our funds. And I actually went to see somebody in York, I won't say the organisation, but somebody in York, and said to them, I'm really nervous about pressing this button. And they said, let's do it together. And we did it. And so, oh, it didn't blow up. We're actually absolutely fine. But that's the collaboration that you build across all of your networks, because we're all on the same journey. And I often say I'm more external facing because I spend more time with external networks and organizations to be able for me to bring it internally and to be able to support. But you're right, not everything's going to work. But if we talk about it, then we can choose the elements that we think will work for our
But what about that return? Lindsay mentioned it briefly there. You've got a business case to make. People say, well, we've got to hire people. You've got to persuade people you want to hire, but then you want to hire apprentices. How does that work inside your companies? How do you actually, what is the return? Do people think this is a really great investment to invest in young people, to invest young people in apprenticeships and so on? Is that?
Within CCP, we have linked it to our workforce planning. And we absolutely recognise so we're already up to 2035. We know the skills, we know the capabilities we're trying to build. We're not going to be able to go out and just recruit those people. So we want to grow and nurture it. And, the best way for someone to understand your organisation is for them to be part of it. And we develop them in the way that we need to. So therefore, when we have engineering vacancies coming up and our engineering apprentices are due to come off programme, they're going into those vacancies. So we're no longer having that gap within the organisation. So straight away, that's a cost saving for us. All of our sales apprentices come into permanent roles, which means that we're not holding vacancies. They're there already. They're being trained. They're being developed for us as an organisation. So the business automatically sees that return on investment. But also just from an engagement perspective, more young people coming in, more development, more succession planning. It's not something you can go out and buy.
Right, and he says that you built it right into the company's strategy if you are structured.
So return on investment can be seen across many different things. So it's the positivity of the workforce to at the end of the day, we want a well-trained operational workforce that can deliver the contract. So some would look at that, but we've got to make sure that we're trained and able to deliver on the contracts that Amey has in place. That would not be, I believe, as effective if we didn't have apprentices coming in, because they are key to that return on investment to what Amey has signed up to do.
And the resilience, which we talk so much about in business now, to have a resilient force that you got control of, as opposed to, can I get 50 people now? Suddenly, that's quite hard to do.
Yeah, and so another about the retention side of things, some people would focus on that as the return on investment. Our retention is very, very high in our apprentices, and actually right across our early careers community, we're able to hire apprentices on permanent contracts, which says a lot in the first place. But we have apprentices that are promoted while they're on their apprenticeships, not have to wait till the end. The civil engineering degree apprentices, they get promoted to assistant engineer prior to completing it. But then also as well, in certain sectors of business, a push for chartership and that professional recognition beyond the apprenticeship that they're supporting. So the return on investment is not just the pounds and pence. It is, in some people's world, there's lots of other things that are measured for that return.
We are sadly at the end
This
of
call's just
time.
been so quick.
It has gone really quickly. Look, I think it's clear, like I said, you guys have done huge amounts of work to get your programs to where they are, and it's fascinating to hear about them. And I hope that employers listening today will listen and go, do you know what? Okay, maybe it's not as hard as we thought it was. And actually, when we do it and we do it right, we see loads of great things as a result. So I'm really grateful that you've come and you've joined us today, and Phil for just leading this conversation and learning from.
Inspiring, you guys, really amazing.
They are really great, aren't they? So
Really great.
brilliant examples. So thank you so much, guys. If today's conversation has sparked ideas or helped you think differently about apprenticeships within your organisation, the potential of being able to recruit young people, or the way in which you can help to build networks for your apprentices, please do share it with a colleague or on your social channels. You can find more information about the organisations that were spoken about during today's episode in the links. And you can find further resources and employer insights on the 5% Club's LinkedIn page or on our website, www.5percentclub.org.uk. Thank you for listening, and join us next time for more insight, inspiration and innovation on Take 5.